Welcome to Ordinary People, Extraordinary Connections, a podcast all about helping you comfortably connect with others in any situation. Hosted by Leanne and John, this podcast is proudly brought to you by Fortitude at Work. fortitudeatwork.com.au.
Welcome to Ordinary People, Extraordinary Connections. I'm Leanne.
And I'm John.
Oh, you're still John.
I am, or Johnny.
Still Johnny.
Or JD, or
Yeah.
whatever you want to call me.
Yeah, Johnny's the way, I think.
That'll work.
So we've had some pretty serious sessions the last couple of weeks, Johnny.
We have. We did anger and
Suicide
and
stress
stress.
and how to find a counsellor.
Yeah, we did too. That's right. So,
And, you know, I think all of those topics are quite touchy and quite challenging, don't you think, to talk about?
they are.
But the one topic that probably scares me the most,
And what, on top of anger and sadness and,
And
suicide
suicide.
and crying and...
yeah, the one that scares me the absolute most to talk about is the one we're going to talk about today.
happiness.
Happiness.
Okay. That's weird.
I know, that is weird. I know we were going to talk about it today, and I knew we were coming here to this absolutely gorgeous studio, and
You prepared?
yeah, I prepared, but it's frightening. It's actually frightening to talk about happiness.
Why is happiness so scary?
Yeah, I perhaps because it's individual, it's sometimes fleeting.
That's a feeling.
It's a feeling. It can be hard to measure. It's what makes me happy
Yeah.
may not make you happy.
That's true. And when you speak to people in their jobs and their careers, their relationships, you hear people saying, so are you happy? Are you happy though?
Yeah.
And you go, well, I'm happy today. I was happy for an hour last week.
Yeah. And I don't think people actually want to hear you say no.
No.
You know, they don't want to hear you say, well, actually, I struggled to get out of bed yesterday.
Yes, that's true. So it's a bit of a loaded question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. They want you to say, yep, I'm happy. Or they want you to say, no, I'm sad. Or I don't like it. Because then you got an opportunity then to say, well, that's great if you're happy. Or, oh, that's no good. Then you should leave that job or that person or that location or that house or that suburb.
Yeah, let me try and make you happy
I'm going to fix you.
in some way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the other thing that scares me about the topic is that it's kind of unpredictable. It's hard to know how people measure and react to various levels of happiness. And the reason that I bring that up is because I remember when I was a young whippersnipper of a trainer
Yeah.
all those years ago, and I worked in a larger corporate body at the time.
Yep.
And I would walk in of a morning. I love my job, and I would walk in of a morning and, you know, say good morning to everybody. And then one day one of the directors said to me that I was just too damn happy. And that perhaps and he wasn't even saying it in a nice way, he was trying to give me advice, and that perhaps if I wasn't as happy, I would get a better reception from people of a morning. And it kind of put me off, because I remember thinking, oh, I didn't even know that there was such a thing as being too happy.
So with all these years of experience now under your belt, what was behind his question, you reckon?
Well, I'm thinking maybe seeing. That's the unpredictable nature of it, isn't it? Really, it could have gone two ways. He may have felt that I was not being authentic.
Okay.
It may have appeared as inauthentic.
Yep.
Which was not the case. It was genuinely me and who I was. I loved the job. I loved being at work. I loved what I did.
Yep.
So he may not have believed that level of joy.
Yeah. Or he wasn't happy.
Or he wasn't. Correct.
And he doesn't like other people being that happy when there's so many things to be unhappy about.
When he was struggling. So, or may have been struggling. Who am I to know?
He may have also been that sort of person that says when you're working and working hard, that's not a happy environment. So if he sees someone at work that's happy, then he thinks they're not working hard enough.
Yeah.
Because the way he operates in the world would be to be focused and even a little stressed or anxious around whatever his job or goal was. So when you see someone else wandering around with a big smile on their face, clearly they're just not working.
Yeah, that's right. So and maybe that's something that's always stayed in the back of my mind, is that it's probably worth acknowledging that sometimes people who are too happy can irritate other people.
Yeah.
Even unintentionally.
That's true. And if someone does say, you're too happy, cut that out or whatever, then most people, including me, don't have the presence of mind to go, oh, I wonder what's going on with him. They straight away go, what's going on with me?
Yeah.
And you take it personally. You said, oh, am I being too happy?
That's right.
Should I be happy?
Am I
supposed to
being
be
too
not?
over the top? Or that's exactly right. And look, I think we go through the experience of happy or unhappy every day. All we have to do is wake up our teenage children early in the morning, and what do we get?
Yeah, that's true.
We get unhappy, don't we?
Yeah, and there's some chemical stuff there, right? About, certain juices that come into your brain and your psyche in the morning that aren't quite firing just yet.
Yeah.
So hard to jump out of bed and get into the day with a big smile on your face for some people.
Yeah.
But then, of course, there are people that just leap out of bed as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think I read somewhere too a report that said that happiness not only is, something that you can influence with the environment that you're in, but there is a genetic disposition that is going to put you on the happiness scale. And in fact, females, I think, are 41% more genetically disposed to being happy. Than males. I think males have about a 22%, from what I read, I'm just trying to remember the numbers, but have about a 22% likelihood to be disposed to happiness genetically or hereditary. Hereditary.
We're
hereditarily.
the less chirpy sex, is that right? We're less...
less chirpy. So females have a bit more of a genetic tendency to be more on the happiness scale, so purely by sex.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, well, there you go. So there's the nature part, or a bit of nature part there, compared to nurture or experience in life.
Yeah,
you can actually enter the world being less likely to be happy than the average.
Yeah.
That's a bit rough.
Yeah, I know. It kind of puts you on the back foot, or maybe it just, gives you an excuse to try harder.
Okay.
And maybe too, I'm just thinking of it in light of the teenage boys that I wake up quite often of a morning because I make them go and do things. And maybe I just need to be mindful that, they are not of the happier sex.
Yes, sad boys.
Sad boys.
Yeah.
What you gonna do?
Yeah, and you've also
what you gonna do when your mum comes for you?
You can find a rhyme in anything, can't you?
I know. I'm just being too happy, aren't I? Really?
Yeah,
I just
cut that
need to be
out.
quiet.
Cut that out.
The other thing I was reading about just recently is that we apparently the science around positive psychology now has found that we have a weighted set in ourselves. I can't think what you call it now, but a counter set, I guess, in our own body that brings us back to our own personal level of happiness. So for some people, they have that they will always reset to what their body naturally says is this is happiness for me. So we might have moments of joy, utter joy, but we will naturally come back to whatever our own disposition says is our happy state. Okay. Likewise, we can be very sad and upset, but we will return to...
Yeah, our personal average.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you'll have happy days and you'll have sad days and happy moments and sad moments, but you'll reset.
You reset to your own personal levels, in fact. So, what I would regard to be a happy, cheerful day may in fact be a hard and, a tough day for someone else to get through, because we actually have our own inner balance.
And is that average built from both genetics and environment?
Genetics and environment.
Okay.
And being able to, do things that might up some of the neurotransmitters that are working within our brain and the messages, and also affect the hormones as well. And I guess we can't really talk about happiness without talking about chemical imbalance. This episode isn't really about chemical imbalance, which might be play an effect on things like depression.
Yep.
For example, where there is, a chemical imbalance that some people need drugs to help rebalance what's going on for them. So they need to go and see their doctor. They need to go and talk to somebody who can actually help prescribe an antidepressant or some sort of medication that will help.
Get the chemicals in balance.
To address. So we're not talking about that. We're just talking about general, happy days and sad days in this episode, and I think that's worth clarifying.
There's
right up
a
front.
difference between sort of situational depressive periods, and depression as a clinical state.
That's and I think that's worth mentioning. And yes, you talked about some of the the juices that flow within us, and some of those neurotransmitters are things like dopamine and noradrenaline and endorphins. And I guess we all know about endorphins, right? So, and we can really up our endorphin levels through the things that we do through our environment. And then some of the hormones that actually affect our own happiness level are things like cortisol, adrenaline, oxytocin, and melatonin. So, and again, there are things that we can physically do within our environment that will affect those levels and therefore affect our ability to feel happy or sad.
So if you take into account your genetic predisposition and your chemical makeup and your and then your environment, it's quite a complicated cocktail to work out how you feel and how happy you are. That gets quite complicated.
Yeah.
So for the average bear who's looking for some information around happiness in their life and they haven't been diagnosed with a depression.
That's right.
Then maybe we can come up with some ways for people with mindfulness to find a way to be reasonably peaceful and happy. Have a happy and peaceful existence.
Yes, that's exactly right. We can certainly touch on that. And on the way over, I was wondering how long would it take before that word would come up in this episode, mindfulness.
Oh, okay.
And it's been 11 minutes and 32
there
seconds.
You go. Were you betting on it? Or?
Only a little bit with myself, and I've won.
I'm big on mindfulness, only because it's something that's come into my life, and I've also noticed it come into a lot of other people's lives, that it's really made a huge difference in their lives by having that awareness around themselves. And it's a muscle that you exercise that brings great benefits.
Yeah, that's true.
So the more you know yourself and watch yourself, and have strategies around ways of thinking, can really affect your life positively.
Yeah, I agree.
Hugely.
I agree.
Yeah.
You're listening to Ordinary People, Extraordinary Connections. Do you want to spread the word in your workplace, community, team or school? We're available to speak at your event or deliver customised training. Visit fortitudeatwork.com.au for more info.
And let's come back to mindfulness. There's something else that I wanted to explore first, and this is this notion that happiness is almost like a drug. In the idea that what makes us happy initially may not make us happy over an extended period of time. So, for example, and I was reading about this the other day, and I was trying to think about some everyday examples that highlight that. And I guess I came back to our relationship, Johnny, to when we first met. So what made me really happy
You
initially.
were happy back then?
I was happy.
Okay. Initially?
I'm still happy.
Oh, yeah, no.
But I'm just thinking, if you think of first love,
Yep.
What made me happy first when we first met was, holding my hand and sending me text messages, and all those little things would make my stomach flip, and I'd have those butterflies. And nowadays I still love it when you hold my hand and you send me text messages, and you send me lots of them, and I love it. But my stomach doesn't flip as much now as it did when we first met, because I've had 20 years of text messages and hand holding.
I'm gonna have to up the game, or change the game.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah. So, having said that, I've not had as many years of flower receiving.
Yeah, I've never really got that. But
I'm
if
only
it's
joking. But do you understand what I'm saying? It's like
the honeymoon period.
Well, yeah, not even, and I've just picked that as one example. And I'm not saying that that I don't love that. Still, I do. But what I'm saying is, when we first held hands, my stomach would flip and I wouldn't be able to eat for about 24 hours because I'd just be in that euphoric state. And now, unfortunately, I can eat even while you're holding my hand. I can eat.
Yep.
So my point there is that what makes us happy initially, I guess, is a bit like a drug. You know, a drug gives you a euphoric hit initially, in some instances, I'm guessing.
Yep.
But then that initial level wears off and we need more and more and more.
Yeah, well, if you, we'll probably do a podcast on addiction, but if you look at the quick fix of happiness and you get the rush of a feeling of well-being or euphoria, then you're really going into a world of when putting in drugs or alcohol or external chemicals that evoke and release the chemicals, endorphins and adrenaline, and you get this feeling of feeling good.
Yeah.
And well-being, just like with nicotine.
Yeah.
And then, but it's a short-term process, and it's early, and you want to get that again. So you try again, and it gets harder and harder to hold and to keep. So you need more and more and more and more.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So but somewhere in the middle there's a difference between getting an external chemical to give you a hit to some sort of long-term peaceful, happy medium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost to the point where you, we're going to get quite philosophical now, but to the point where you don't even really need to be happy. You don't even need it.
You're not searching it out anymore.
Yeah, you're not searching it. You don't have to have it. You just are. Yeah, and that's really the ultimate, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I suppose if you're going to be on the earth for 70 or 80 years or something, and you're looking for stability and safety and a sense of belonging and connection and love, and you find all of those within yourself and also from others, then that's a pretty good way to live.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you don't rely on the quick fixes or the injections, of stuff. Yeah.
And even just processing this discussion, Johnny, it kind of makes sense because I've been, there's a lot out there at the moment around positive psychology, and all you need to do is Google that, and there's endless TED Talks, and there's a lot of information around positive psychology.
Yep.
But one of the things that that's been said quite a bit, particularly in the mindfulness sector, is the importance of gratitude. And how being grateful is directly linked to a sense of happiness, to bring happiness and to bring joy into your life. If you want to increase your level of happiness, look for the things that you're immediately grateful for.
Yeah, there's a bit of law of attraction there and positive thinking.
Yeah, positive thinking.
Yeah, so if you concentrate on what you have and have gratitude for that, then that grows.
Yeah.
And if you concentrate on what you don't have and have resentment around that, then that will grow.
Yeah. And I think the other way that works, that makes sense, because to me, I kind of saw them as two separate ideas. Yes, I can be grateful, but I don't really get how gratitude's going to make me happy. I don't really get that. But having this discussion today about how happiness is almost like a drug, we need more and more and more of it, then suddenly I can see how important it is to be grateful, because it ties into the mindfulness notion of going, well, I find myself, I'm unhappy because I'm not getting enough, I'm not making enough money, right? But I need to remember when I first started working and I earned my first $100, how happy and joyful I was because I was earning my own money, and I need to be grateful that I have the capacity to earn dollars. Yeah. And so therefore, if that sense of I'm never earning enough money, I'm just picked that out of the blue, but if that sense of I'm never earning enough money is somehow making you feel uncomfortable, discontent,
Yeah.
Unhappy,
Yeah.
then gratitude for the first $100 earned and the capacity even to make money brings us back to a sense of happiness.
Yeah. Well, that's an optimistic outlook.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you can create and with your thoughts an optimistic outlook, and also to look for the positives in all the things that happen in your life, and even when the negatives come, and the reason as you get older you tend to recognise the gifts in the negatives, the gifts in not getting that house at the auction, not that relationship not going forward, that sort of thing. You see all these things happen around you, say, oh, my life's terrible, these things keep happening. But if you, from experience, recognise that that wasn't the path, and this new path actually has the things I want in it, and the second you realise that life is difficult, it becomes less difficult.
Yeah.
Which is from M. Scott Peck, the Road Less Travelled. So life is difficult, but the second I realise that life's difficult, it becomes less difficult.
And do you know what else is really interesting that ties into that notion is some other research that I was looking at recently that says that argues that people with stronger left brain tendencies, so that the concrete thinkers of the world really, and yes, we're both left and right, depends on the circumstance, we're never one or the other. But if you have a greater preference for concrete thinking and left brain, numerical and processing thoughts around that, you are more likely to be happier
Oh, there you go.
than if you're more of a right brain thinker. So this research had found that if you have a stronger bias towards right brain thought processes, you're probably not going to be as naturally happy as a left brain concrete thinker.
Okay.
Which is interesting because maybe that ties back to that notion that, if you can think logically, then you can actually work your way through what brings you happiness and what doesn't, and tie that back to gratitude.
Yeah, well, that's
because it's a logical process.
Yeah, well, that happens in CBT. So if you're you have a mindset that has a list of beliefs.
What does CBT stand for? Cognitive-based therapy?
Behavioural.
Behavioural therapy.
Yep. So
that's why you're the counsellor and I'm just the talker.
Yeah, that's right. So it's for me, it all connects, right? So, but I also have this. I'm going to be philosophical now too, and that is that our journeys are on purpose. So as we go through our lives and we have these ups and these downs and these setbacks and these disappointments, they're all opportunities to look for gifts, and those gifts come each time. And as we were saying before, if you concentrate on the negatives, then you'll get more negative. If you concentrate on the positive, you get more positive.
Yep.
But as you said, you've got genetic makeup. You've got your baseline of happiness fighting against you, and then you may have some chemical dysfunction that fights against you. So if you're an unhappy person, you have to look at it. It's a holistic view, and that is, I could have a genetic influence.
Yeah, true.
I have my medium or my base rate.
Yeah.
And then I have the side of my brain that I'm using.
Yeah.
More than the other. And you go, all of these things contribute to who I am and where I am right now.
Yeah.
So the question is, do I have choice?
Ah, yeah.
Okay. So if you are hit with a disappointment or a setback,
Yeah.
the way you react to that, you go, okay, was there an influence somewhere in my life that said I can actually turn this into a positive? Or is this just yet another kick in the guts that I just keep getting one after the other? And it's from those influences in your past that help you to make a decision that says, I think I'm actually going to start to look on the bright side.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to start to appreciate what I have. I'm going to have gratitude for the things around me. And I know from experience that a gift will come from this setback.
And I think you're right. And I think the fancy term for that is reframing.
There you go.
So we're going to take a particular situation and see it for what it is. Bit of left brain there, right? Concrete thinking around it, but bring in a bit of the right, which says, how can I creatively reframe this to put a positive bent on the situation? And in fact, I think that's one of the key things that Martin Seligman says, is that if we do actually have the capacity to train ourselves to be happier.
Yeah.
to practice happiness.
Absolutely. And you can find the tools and the strategies and the mindfulness, and you can turn it around.
Yeah.
And your next thought is yours, and you can choose. So if you go, okay, I'm having a bad time, I'm not enjoying this, I'm generally not happy, I'm not diagnosed with depression, but I'd really like to have a more fulfilled, purpose-driven life.
Yeah.
Okay, where I feel like I have value.
Yeah.
And I'm connecting to other human beings, and I feel I'm enjoying my life.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm having this period where it's just not coming together. And you say, okay, so what do I do? Now you can go and find and connect with a person, like a counsellor, and not the first one, whichever one suits you.
Yep. See, a couple of episodes ago for info on that.
Yeah, or find a friend, someone that's a good listener, an unconditionally positive, regarding, loving person that's just going to love you and accept you for who you are, and give you a space or an environment for you to find your way to a more happier existence.
Yeah.
And the way to do that is to talk it out, is to connect, and and if you've got someone, they can give you some strategies and techniques around gratitude, around appreciation, around positive thinking.
Yeah.
And also reframing it.
Yeah.
So you can see the good side, and a whole bunch of metaphors that can be used in that process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
great. And in fact, that's one of the keys that Seligman talks about. He talks about 3 practices that we can do to be more positive, have a more positive outlook. And one of the in fact, that's the 3rd one, which is using ourself and our strengths to serve a good that is greater than us, which comes back to some of the things that I've talked so much about when it comes to small business and mental health strategies. How do I stay resilient in managing a small business? And that's to do with, having an outside interest and connecting with others, which is what you've just said, connecting with others for a greater good.
Yeah.
And that doesn't have to be, universally bound, or, it's not religious. It's just about doing something that is outside of yourself, contributing.
What appears to be a selfless act in the service of others.
Yeah, in the service of a selfless act in the service of others. That's beautifully said, Johnny.
Yeah, that's what I come up with.
And that's why you're here. That's why I pay you the big bucks.
That's it. Yeah, I've got the gems.
Yeah, so that's a good one to remember. So, if the one listener we have out there who's going, well, what do I do to feel happier? One thing is go out and do something that's, connected with others and for the service of others.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And there's lots of opportunities, lots of volunteering opportunities, and there's lots of people, I'm guessing, in your life that would love you to connect. Lonely people that need help, people that would really appreciate someone caring for them.
Yeah, or even doing something that might bring joy to others anyway. It doesn't have to be, directly in the service. It might be something that brings joy to others. So, for example, For my mental health, to maintain my mental health, as you know, I go out and do a lot in community theatre, which I really enjoy. But I know ultimately that others will come in and enjoy the work that I do in relation to community theatre, and so it's kind of giving back, but not in the way that that you might have, for example, with your work with Lifeline. So.
So it's and although it seems like a selfless act in the service of others, the pay is tremendous. It's just not in money. So you feel valuable. You feel like you've played a part and that you've helped.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And someone else's life is better for having an experience with you.
Yeah.
But because it's equal, as I said in one of the other podcasts, you walk away just as enriched by the experience.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly it. And another thing that Seligman says is being able to, as you've already touched on, and we talked about this in light of reframing, but it's being able to focus on positive emotions that have happened in the past, present, and that are going to happen in the future. So not dwelling.
Yeah.
Not dwelling on the negative. And look, we wouldn't be human if we didn't have negative emotions that's happened. But his point is, yes, we all have them, but let's not dwell on them.
Yeah, and if you've got 10 things happening in your life and 8 of those things aren't going to plan and you have anxiety or fear around them, but there's a couple of things that are going well, then concentrating on those two things and building on those.
Yeah, great.
To give them more power in the scale.
Yeah.
And saying, oh, well, this seems to be working, and this I'm getting some joy from. How can I build on that?
Yeah.
So that it becomes a larger part of the ratio.
Yeah, that's great. So that's, I guess, looking at the future.
Yeah.
Looking at the present, we come back to mindfulness, really, don't we?
Yeah.
In terms of, controlling where I am right at this point in time. And I can give you a classic example of this. Not that it happens to me very often, but from time to time, I might run late for a meeting, very occasionally. And sometimes I might realise, let's say, for example, I've got to be in a meeting at 10 a.m.
Yep.
It's 5 to 10 and I'm still sitting in traffic.
Yep.
Rather than sit in my car being stressed because I know I'm going to be late, rather than do that, I will say to myself, I'm not late yet.
Yeah.
And if I'm not late yet,
I haven't let anyone down.
And I have no reason to be stressed.
Yeah. And as I was about to say before, about being of service to others.
Yeah.
A feeling of purpose and that you're making other people's lives better. For me, it's to equal that with being of service to myself and caring for me equally.
Yeah.
So I can, if you want a more happy, fulfilled, purpose-driven life, if you can somehow find that balance that says I'm going to care for others, but I'm also going to care for me.
Yeah.
So it's not always about selfless acts. It's actually about, for want of a better term, selfish acts, and that is that I'm going to care for myself just as much as I care for others.
Yeah, which ties in with that whole mindfulness and being aware of self.
Yeah.
So if you're sitting in traffic, for example, and it's 5 to 10 and really, you're just never going to get to that meeting at 10 o'clock. But care for self means saying to yourself, being present enough to yourself to say, there's no need for me to be stressed right now because right at this point in time, I'm safe, I'm okay, and I'm actually not late.
Yes, and I'm a good person.
Yeah,
and I'm going to help.
Yeah.
And I'm just running late, and I'll be just as helpful.
Yeah.
10 minutes late.
Yeah. And what about, if we come back to Seligman's advice with regards to putting it, thinking positively about the past, present, and the future. So we've talked about the future, which is focus on the good stuff and try and build that up.
Yep.
We've talked about the present, which is practice mindfulness.
Yep.
Tell yourself, I'm safe right now, I'm doing okay right now, and I'm a good person.
Are we going to give attention to and let go of the past?
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Okay.
So what do we do about putting a positive slant on the past or, focusing on our positive previous history?
There's a fair bit of debate on this one, and it's, for me, in my years of doing this, I leaned into a space of re-experiencing traumatic events in the past to release them. That was where I was at in my early days, and then headed more towards, well, not actually re-experiencing traumatic experiences from the past, but actually just viewing them, reviewing them, right? So you review the traumatic experiences in the past, so you give them attention, and that is that sometime in my past there were some negative experiences that I sort of I experienced, and I pushed them down into my guts and just left them there. Right? And they stayed there and they sort of just dwelled there. And every once in a while they rear their ugly head when the button is pushed to release them. And you say, okay, so in a therapeutic environment, let's go and review those negative and traumatic experiences in the past, see how they had affected you, what it was like for you at the time, and how it's affected your life coming forward.
Right.
And the magic in that is that just by the review releases the power of the past.
Yeah.
And then, as you were alluding to, you go, okay, so what's the positive in those negative experiences?
Yeah.
And you can find examples. You can say, well, so I'm in the business now of helping people that are worried about business.
Yeah.
Okay, that have anxiety and fear around business. And I have in my past traumatic experiences around my fears around business.
Yeah.
If I didn't have that, I wouldn't be as helpful as I am today to all these people.
Yeah.
So there was gift in that negativity.
Yeah, completely agree. Exactly the same experience for me because, teaching at the university around small business growth and sustainability. and saying to my original supervisor there when I returned back to the University of Newcastle to do that lecturing role was, I think I've had a lot of failure and I've struggled quite a bit in small business. And he said to me, that's exactly why you should be here and teaching, because you've learnt so much. That in many ways that those hard and what I might call negative experience, not even they're failure in my head, not in others, but those experiences have actually helped to make me a really good teacher, because I'm very aware of the things that, you need to be aware of to manage growth well in small business.
The required pain of wisdom.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So again, it's really about reframing. It's about saying, well, how thankful am I that I had some really tough times growing small business, because it's those tough times that now actually make me a really good teacher and a really good business coach, because I know, what needs to be done because I've lived it and I know the consequences of decisions that are made.
And there's an example for every one of those negative experiences, and you say, okay, it was traumatic, it was negative, it was painful, it hurt. Okay, but what has it given me? What's the gift in that? And you often find that the gift is that I'm more self-loving. I'm more self-giving. I have more wisdom around this subject, and I can now share that with others to help them. And if I hadn't had those experiences, I wouldn't have that wisdom.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And when you come back to the present and you're having a painful period, you go, okay, I'm really feeling the pain, but experience tells me that there'll be a gift in this.
Yeah. And I don't know how many times I've said to people, this too shall pass.
Yeah, that's it.
This too, and even in the happy times. In the happy times. And that's, I guess, coming back to our equilibrium, isn't it, really? We go up, we're really happy, we come back down. We drop down below our equilibrium, we're going to come back up, because it's all transient. All these feelings are transient. We just have to know how to get through them. Yeah,
and another little trick with mindfulness is that if you find yourself feeling bad, and you're going, well, I for the life of me can't work out why. Why am I feeling this? I've got this knot in my stomach, or I've got this feeling of that something's not quite right. And you go, okay, well, let's try a little mindfulness trick. Let's go back in time, just today, to find when that feeling started. When I was quite happy this morning. I was quite happy at lunchtime, but now it's 5 o'clock and I feel like crap. What happened between lunchtime and 5 o'clock? If you can go back and find the moment that the guy said, geez, you're a bit too happy to be in here, love. Right? Or you have a phone call with someone and they go, oh, I didn't know what you meant. Or there was you wanted to get an auction on eBay and you didn't win. Right? Just something will happen. And then if you go, okay, so it started then you go, okay, so what was it about that experience that has put me in this lower negative mindset? Because, it's because I didn't get what I wanted, or I felt not valued, or I was criticised, or they pushed my button of my past hurt, saying, geez, your hair's a bit messy today, whatever it was.
It doesn't have to be that. As long as we go back and figure that out. And, sometimes we do. We get out of bed of a morning and go, stubbed my toe, didn't have enough money for my cup of coffee in the morning, and then I missed my train. Typical, it's going to be a crap day today. And we actually set up an unhappy day right from the start. When you and I have just spent nearly 40 minutes talking about how it really doesn't have to be that way. No. We can retrain and reframe our mind.
You can choose
to think differently. We can choose to do that.
And if you've had anyone in your life that has accepted and loved you at some point in your life, they placed a tool in you that allows you to care for yourself and love yourself and to see the positives in the situation and look for the gifts in the negativity and know that wisdom comes from pain.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So as corny as it sounds, there's a positive that comes out of everything if we look for it. We just look for it.
It is.
And from just a physical, practical point of view, let's end on a couple of extra little tips, little trivia tips that I've picked up along the way, Johnny.
Yeah, excellent.
If you want a bit more of the happy juices, you call them happy juices. That's a nice, easy way to get your head around.
Is this your exercise stuff? Is this your walking stuff?
A little bit.
Okay,
just a little
where
bit.
you go. Where you go. You're big on that.
It's nice podcast? Yeah, well, actually walking is really good. Exercise is really good for raising your endorphins, and endorphins help you to actually feel better. So that's why I do walk and work, is because quite often having that that little bit of exercise encourages the feel-goods to run through. And if you feel good, you're more open to exploring
your
creative
creativity.
thinking and
Gary McDonald,
tackling
Gary
problems.
McDonald used his daily walk to manage his
Yeah,
depression
huge
for
advocate
years.
of walking,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So exercise is really good for endorphins. If you want to give your oxytocin a little bit of a push, you didn't see the action I made there on the podcast episode, a little bit of a push, touch from another human being.
Really?
Yep. It's very good for releasing oxytocin or increasing the oxytocin levels.
Yeah, there was a certain time length of a hug, wasn't there? I remember seeing that.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, the half a second doesn't work, but the 3 second does, or something like that. Yeah.
Yep. So giving somebody a hug
Yep.
helps to release oxytocin in the body, or even touching them. So,
Getting permission's probably a good idea.
well, maybe.
Otherwise,
Depends.
well, I don't know.
Depends.
It's not going to work on the bus.
You never know.
That's possible.
You never know.
Yep.
Depends on the situation, I guess. Common sense will say.
Yep.
And if you want to increase your dopamine levels, practice gratitude.
There it is.
There you go, hey? Be grateful for something.
Yeah.
Anything. Just be aware, be mindful, be grateful.
Yep.
And you will, in fact, begin to feel happier purely by feeling more grateful.
Fantastic. And if you're the practical, structured person, little bits of paper saying, I am lucky because.
Yeah, I am lucky because. That's great.
Fill in the dot.
Oh, love that, Johnny.
Every day.
I am lucky because I have you, John.
Oh, there you go.
See?
Yeah, I'm happy already.
Well, what a beautiful way to end this episode. Thank you, everybody, or every person, everyone, for being with us.
Thank you, both of you, for listening.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Ordinary People, Extraordinary Connections with Leanne and John. Connect with us via Facebook at Fortitude at Work. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show.